All right, I hope everybody enjoyed their holiday and their new year. As you know, a couple of weeks ago, SHOT Show 2025 wrapped up. So today, I thought I'd do the lowest form of content possible, and which is a tier list. But we're going to be going after specifically ambidextrous controls on what was announced this year at SHOT Show. Big thanks to all the real content creators out there that were at the show. The main ones that come to mind are TFB TV Showtime and AR15.com. I used some stills from some other videos, not trying to take anything away from them. They did a fantastic job. I just needed some images to get my points across, so I used them. Moving on. If you don't know how a tier list works, S is the best, F is the worst. We skip E to make things easy. I'll go into a couple examples and then we'll roll right into things. The first example is the Beretta ARX 180 or ARX 160. Ambidextrous safety, ambi mag release, ambi bolt catch bolt release. The charging handle is reversible and the ejection is reversible, which is very cool. I used to have one of these. It was very cool. I just didn't shoot it that much. I wish I had never sold it. The tactical tuna forever lives on in my heart, and if you dress it up the right way, I actually think they look pretty cool. Having said all that, the ambi controls on this gun make it an S tier. Now, our next example to use is this Nemo Arms ambidextrous AR-15. I don't know who thought this abomination was a good idea, who was looking at their Lazy Susan in the design department and thought that would make a good bolt catch bolt release. Some of their models with this don't even have any controls on the left side of the gun, so calling it ambi should lead to jail time in my opinion. This is truly awful and makes me nauseous every time I look at it. It is an F tier. So again, these two were both not at SHOT Show 2025. They were just examples. Let's go into the first real contender from SHOT Show 2025. So first we have the Aero Precision Pro Lower. This year they announced their M5, or just their large frame version of this. The small frame was announced last year. I believe those started rolling out a couple of months ago. As you can see, they have the ambi paddle bolt catch bolt release on the right side, which is pretty good. It's a little bit moved to the rear and down, which is not my preference, but I do appreciate that it's a paddle on both sides. You can see there how offset the paddles are. Again, not my favorite thing in the world. I wish they could have designed that a little bit differently, but it is better than most. Looking at the magazine release, same thing. It's just kind of relocated to the rear and down. I prefer a Norgan style release, but this isn't bad. Having said all that, it is a B tier. Next up, we have the Brownells BRN 180 Gen 3 uppers and lowers. I would assume at some point they're coming out as a complete gun. Looking at the right side of the gun, they have the button bolt release. I believe it's a catch as well, not 100%. Ambi safety, the charging handle and magazine release have been moved on the left side of the gun with a gasket for the charging handle, standard bolt catch bolt release, and then the magazine release has moved down. I'm not a big fan of really any of these changes. It makes a lefty have to run a BRM 180 the way a right-handed person would have to run an AK. I would prefer a rearward biased or just enlarged bolt catch bolt release. And I hate when they move magazine releases down in the trigger guard like that. I think it's at a less advantageous angle. Having said all that, it does have full ambi controls, just not my preference. So to me, that is a C tier. It's pretty average. So the next one on the list wasn't at SHOT Show, but it made its rounds on Instagram. We have the Cat Suppressor Company, their rifle. Looking at the left side of the gun, they have the Norgan magazine release, or at least that style magazine release, like that. Radian ambi safety, like that. Rearward bias bolt catch bolt release, again, I like that. Looking at the other side of the gun, they have the lifter style bolt catch bolt release. Again, not my favorite. Theirs, however, does look really well done, and it's kind of fenced. Shielded, kind of not. I'm assuming this is a prototype rifle or a proof of concept, but there's a better look at that. I do like that design. Having said that, I believe if you're going to have a lifter on one side, you should have one on the other side. Most of it is off-the-shelf parts that I use in most of my builds. So for that, it is a C tier. Probably I would say on the upper end of C tier is definitely better than the BRN 180, which I'm just realizing is BRN 190, so I'm not going to redo that, but you can laugh at me in the comments. After that, we have the Palmetto State Armory Jackal 2.0. I originally wasn't going to put this on the list because it's not ambidextrous at all, but in the marketing video they were saying it was, so we'll talk about it as if it is, and you can decide. Looking at the right side of the gun, you can see the button bolt catch bolt release, no ambi safety, which is the first red flag. And then looking at the other side of the gun, no ambi magazine release, which is the second red flag. Looks like a standard bolt catch on the left side. And then the charging handle looks like a mid-mounted folding charging handle that is reversible. I do like that. That's probably the only positive on this new gun. At least it takes AR-15 parts, so it should be pretty straightforward to make more ambi. Having said all this, based off the pictures and video I saw, this is a D tier. They should be including the ambi controls if they're going to market it as ambi. The next rifle in question is the South Korean, they used to be Daewoo, I forget what they call themselves now, but the K13 rifle. This is very cool, essentially a South Korean 416, or, well, I mean, I guess it's more of a modernized Daewoo than it is a 416, but regardless, you see they have the ambi safety, looks pretty well designed, nice and round with a short lever, enlarged magazine release, a lifter bolt catch bolt release, but theirs looks like they made the button you touch smaller, and then the arm comes out from the receiver a little bit farther. Seems like an interesting design. Overall, this is a pretty interesting rifle. I'm kind of curious what the reception on this is. I like that Daewoo is coming back, because I always thought their older rifles were pretty cool. Looking at the other side of the gun, I like that the magazine release size and position is mirrored side to side. Hopefully you can see my mouse here. The bolt catch bolt release, I wish they had done a T kind of lever. Also the same issue I have with the Heinel, I believe is what the company is pronounced. Their 416 copy. I wish this was like a T for lefties to use their trigger finger. I don't mind the standard upper ping pong paddle, but there you can see the longer safety. Again, this is a lot like the other ones where it's not a mirror side to side. They're not bad. I'm curious to see how this will do in terms of sales, but most of the ambi controls look pretty straightforward, but nothing too mind-blowing. For that reason, I'm going to put it at C tier. After that, who do we have? We have the Chris Chimera pistol. Very interesting, and I would say innovative pistol. I'm not exactly sold on the design. It looks a little bit goofy. It's almost like the whole pistol was winterized. Look at how humongous that trigger guard is and how big the controls are. But I believe it is slide and frame. Everything is ambidextrous with a reversible magazine release. And then the interesting thing is it's convertible from double action only to single action only, or DASA, which is pretty interesting. I don't think I've ever heard of a company doing that. Usually they're separate models. This, they say, is user swappable to action types, which is pretty cool. Very enlarged controls. The only thing taken away from it, again, aside from the kind of bizarre looking proportions, is a reversible magazine release as opposed to full-time ambi. For that reason, I will give it an A tier, so it's pretty good. After that, we have the Saber Lancet. Mama always said 50 cal and cheap don't go together, but we're about to find out. Again, this is another one I was debating even putting on the list because the only ambi thing is the magazine release is a paddle style. Even this concept doesn't have an ambi safety, and then the charging handle. Again, righties would run like an AK, and lefties would just use the support hand. So I don't know, it's on the fence on if it's ambi or not. Again, we all hope these welds hold and we don't inadvertently have 50 caliber detonation tubes to the pores. But I think it'd be interesting. If they're successful with this, I think it'd be very interesting. But in terms of ambi controls, to me, this is also a D tier. It's kind of ambi by association or by accident more than they tried to. After that, we have the LWRC IC Mark 2. It's pretty cool design. I like what they did with the rail and that they're making it look a little bit more like the Reaper series. However, they didn't really do much changes as opposed to the original IC design. You can see they have the enlarged magazine release for a lefty and their standard Ambi safety. If you look at the other side of the gun, the bolt catch bolt release, again, paddle style. Theirs is, I believe, height more accurate, but more further to the rear, which is not my favorite thing in the world. Having said that, I do like what they're doing. I wish they would have a little bit better aiming controls, but to me, this is pretty good design. I would put this at the upper end of B tier. Yeah, I'd say about equal to the Aero Pro. Could use a little bit of work, but I think they have a cool design there. After that, we have the Matador Arms PCC. Technically, I could have done like 3 versions because they have a Colt mag, MP5 mag, and a Glock mag version of this, but they all control relatively the same. So I just decided to lump them all in one. You have a reversible charging handle, button bolt catch bolt release, magazine release. The right side looks better than the left side, as you can see now. It looks a little more congested and not as ergonomic. Having said all that, it does have all the requisite Ambi parts. The location and ergonomics of them are a little bit questionable, so for me that goes to C tier. But they have an interesting bullpup. I wish they made that Ambi because that thing looks more interesting than the standard PCC. After that, we have the Maxim Defense, I believe it was the MD15A3. To me, it looks like there is a lot of collaboration with Geisley. Which way, who knows? Looking at the right side of the gun, looks like a Geisley Posi Snap safety. We have a lifter style bolt catch bolt release, a little bit on the small side. And then it looks like a small latch Geisley charging handle, but I'm not 100%. On the other side of the gun, the bolt catch bolt release, I actually really like that design. I want to see that in more guns. However, the magazine release I do not like. Further to the bottom of the gun than the BRN 180. However, I do kind of like the shape. The position of that to me just seems off. I wish it was a little bit higher up and maybe a little bit smaller, but it's interesting design. Not my favorite. To me, that is a C tier. Next up, we have the Canik Sete LS, I believe it was. Pretty standard. I hope these are good. All the Caniks I've messed with have been better than I was told they were going to be. Hopefully the USA made ones are even better. You have the big paddle style slide release, similar to a Walther, reversible magazine release. Again, I hope these are good and successful because I like Canik more than I like to admit. But to me, I wish it had a Ambi magazine release all the time instead of just reversible. But again, wish them the best. To me, A tier. After that, we have the Mossberg, the very controversial Mossberg R series with their Ambi AR-15 style safety. As you can see here, this original picture, or this first picture, is the magazine version with the paddle style magazine release. That's Ambi. The biggest issue to me with this design is the pump release, I believe is the term they use, is still front of the trigger guard and it's only on one side. To me, that's not a very good design for a pistol grip style shotgun. The other thing is, look at that gap with the Mo Plus grip. Not the end of the world, that's not the most best fit thing ever. I think it's an interesting design. I think they could have tried a little bit harder. I guess this was for some kind of contract, but to me, when you do a pistol grip pump action shotgun, the pump release should be relocated. I think in general they need to resize and relocate it. I much prefer the 870 where it's back behind the trigger guard. I understand that's a little bit difficult to do with a pistol grip, but to me this is a D tier. The safety, I will say, looks better than people are giving it credit for. Once I get hands on one, I'll probably have a better idea, but for the price, I think those things are going to be like $1,000 or more than that. Why aren't you just getting an A300 Patrol? After that, we have the H&K MR556A4. Most H&K stuff I enjoy. This one has the lifter style bolt catch on and release on the right side. Kind of a flipped FCD style safety, or maybe FCD flipped their design, who knows. But I in general like that safety design. It's not bad. The H&K charging handle's pretty good. You see their bolt catch bolt release on the left side is still the paddle style. that's more forward biased. Not my preference. Would prefer a lifter on both sides. And their magazine release, I haven't touched one of these, but it looks very similar to the Norgan, so it's probably pretty good. Even having said all that, these are kind of pricey for what they are, and the Ambi controls really aren't as good as some of the other H&K designs. So to me, this is just a C tier. So we have the Wellrod at home. Insurance company CEOs, be careful. The pores are coming for you. This is the Palmetto State Armory Wellrod clone that is designed, doesn't come with a suppressor, designed to be suppressed, 45 ACP, and it's a straight pull bolt action. Not too much information on this, but it looks like reversible magazine release, and then just being a straight pull bolt action pistol. It's inherently ambidextrous. Having said all this, it's not, I don't know, to me this design just does not seem very good or ergonomic, let's say. So much like a lot of the PSA designs, this is a D tier. After that, we have the P7 Pro Slim. The P7 Pro, I believe, came out last year. Not sure if it was for SHOT Show last year, but this one is supposedly going to be as skinny as a single stack P7, but it's going to hold as much as the double stack. I have messed around with a legit P7, and it was simultaneously better than I thought it was going to be, but I still think some of the hype on these on the internet is a little bit overblown, if that makes sense. It's kind of like just above average to my mind. We can see the paddle style magazine release. That's ambidextrous. I've never had an issue with that design. I really like paddle magazine releases. The slide release is actually the squeeze cock, so that is inherently ambidextrous. And then I believe the button on the other side of the slide is just takedown. I can't remember how you lock these open, or if you even can, you might need to, I think the gun might need to be empty to lock open. Kind of, I mean, it's obviously dated, but it's very interesting manual of arms, let's say. But I did like the P7 I did shoot. To me, this is an A tier. I would put it on the low end of A tier, maybe tied with the Chimera, just because it's a little bit odd to use, but it is ambidextrous, and it is it's interesting. I hope that goes well and they can continue making them, because the P7 is an interesting design. I just wish it was less expensive and there was more of them. After that, we have the POF Renegade something or other. The one on SHOT Show wasn't fully ambidextrous, but I've seen models on their website that were, so we'll just talk about it as if it is. Button style, bolt release on the right side. They have some kind of bad lever thing up in the trigger guard, not my favorite thing in the world. Your standard style safety. Looking at the other side of the gun, it's just fencing in this picture, but I believe in other models that lower shelf thing is a magazine release. Either way, you can put an organ on it, pretty straightforward. PLF's an interesting company, but I do not like the way they do their ambi controls. They're so bizarrely laid out. Having said that, it does have the requisite parts, let's say, so to me, it's just a C tier. I would put it on the low end of C tier. Probably, let me look here. Yeah, it's probably the bottom of C tier, if not D tier. Next up, the Rost Martin Subcompact. The Glock 19 size one was announced last year, I believe, and now the Subcompact is out. Pretty interesting design to me, or to my understanding rather. All USA made, Ambi, Gen 3 Glock clone. You can see in this picture here, it's Ambi slide lock slide release, Ambi magazine release. I haven't seen one of these to know if they're any good, but it does tick all the boxes in terms of Ambi controls, and being a Glock clone, it's probably pretty reliable. So to me, this is a S tier. If they came out with a full size one, I'd probably roll the dice to check it out, just because it seems to be my MO here is trying out Ambi duty sized handguns. But yeah, this is the first one with full-time Ambi controls. Pretty interesting. Hopefully we see more from Rost Martin in the future. The Vaporware Special, the Centis G36, is essentially a G36 with an aluminum receiver, takes AR-15 fire controls, I believe, and they slightly changed the magazine and bolt lock bolt release. You can see in this picture, it's kind of like ACR styled at the front of the trigger guard, and I think this thing is super cool. Looking at the other side, you can see it's a mirror image side to side. I wish they could clean up this little bar here for the magazine release. Not the end of the world, that's just an aesthetic thing. But still, mirrored side to side. G36 is inherently cool. Takes AR-15 triggers, grips, and safeties, so that's good. They're even coming out with, or supposedly gonna come out with, some retro styled furnitured ones. So pretty cool design. I couldn't even find their website, so I'm willing to believe that this is just vaporware. Hopefully it's not, but to me this is again a high A tier. If it had reversible ejection, we'd be on to something, but aside from that, this is almost an S. Very, very good Ambi controls. Hopefully they stick around. Next up, a sleeper hit for me is the B&T SPC 223. So I believe this was at EWA in 2024, along with some different PCC calibers of the SPC. However, this year at SHOT Show 2025, they said the 223 version will be coming to the civilian market in 2025. And originally, I didn't really care about the SPC because I own an APC, and the controls on the SPC 9 seemed weird and all this stuff. But something about the 223 version jumps out at me. To me, this is almost like what I would have wished the HK 416 would be. Just looking at the lower, you see the lifter style bolt catch, bolt release, the magazine release, and safety. Very similar to the APC and GHM, pretty much everything from B&T design. And then on the other side, mirror image. I almost thought this like lightning cutout was for to swap ejection, and who knows, maybe it is, and I missed that in all the videos I watch. But even still, the full mirror image lower is very cool. It looks like the top rail even sits slightly lower than a 416, obviously a little bit taller than a AR-15, but yeah, this is, I didn't really care about this thing, and then for some reason the videos this year, this really piqued my interest. So SPC 223, very cool. Looking at the Ambi controls, that is an A tier. Who knows, maybe I missed something that's reversible ejection, and it should be an S tier, but from everything I saw, it's not. That was just like a design choice. So that's an A tier, very cool gun. Now we have the belle of the ball, the one everyone's talking about, the Staccato HD. And I'm just like everyone else. This is a very cool design. It's essentially a Glock magazine-fed Staccato, 4-inch and 4.5-inch with a island front sight for the first release. And the one thing I want to note is look at the top-down view Staccato release. And this was, in my opinion, the most exciting thing is you can look at it. It is a mirror image side to side. Most companies designing Ambi guns will favor the right side will be slightly bigger for, or I should say the left side slightly bigger for right-handed people. But looking at the top-down picture, you can see it is the exact same side to side. So good on Staccato for this. I'm very excited about this one. The Ambi controls on it, as you saw in the first picture, it is reversible magazine release. So unfortunately, it has to go into A tier, but this is towards the high end of A tier for sure, and one I'm definitely going to be looking out for. This was released a little bit before SHOT Show, but I'll lump it in with everyone else. The H&K VP9 A1, I believe is what they're calling it, the newest gen VP9. Looking at the picture, you can see paddle magazine release. I like that. I know some people don't, but for me, the paddle magazine release is pretty sick. The big detractor for this design is the slide release. You can see here we have the big Walther style lever, and in my experience they're pretty flimsy and chintzy. But then you look at the other side and it's more of a standard slide release. So I really wish they would put this on both sides. If they did, I'd probably own like 4 by now. But given how the design is, to me, this is a B tier. They really need to fix that slide release. It is not good for lefties. Right-handed people, you probably love it, but for me, not good. After that is the PSA VOOC 9. The VOOC series is pretty interesting. I know it's got kind of a love-hate relationship on the internet. Some people are head over heels with it. Some people hate it. PSA being PSA said it's full Ambi. Didn't even put an Ambi safety on it, but supposedly it is going to take AR-15 safety, so that'll be a pretty easy fix. Paddle magazine release, extended for the trigger finger and down for your support hand, which is good. Charging handle in the middle, run it like an AK. That's, for a lefty, it's close enough to be called Ambi, right? And then the bolt catch, bolt release is a lifter style here. I kind of like this design. The one, it looks a little small and a little guarded, but it should, on paper, I don't see why this wouldn't work. Obviously, this is still a prototype stage for this gun, but everything being equal, for people used to running the AK style manual of arms, this would be pretty good. So to me, this is an A tier. Obviously, it's not going to be, as compared to like AR-15 centric manual of arms, it's not going to be the same, but to people used to AKs, that's going to move it up a couple of tiers. Now we have, also in PSA, the TP9 at home. This is the X9. This is, again, another one very much in the prototype phase. Supposedly reversible magazine release, reversible charging handle up here, no slide lock, slide lever. If it ends up being like the PSA X57, it will not be ambidextrous and shouldn't be on this list at all, but just based off of what the prototype is right now, it looks like you'd have to run it, charge it every time it goes empty like an AK, and then reversible magazine release. It's cool. I hope this goes well for PSA, but just based off of the controls, this is another stinker in my mind. This is a D tier. If they can fix the X57's controls, this would move up one or two, but I have a feeling it's gonna match it almost exactly, so it won't even be Ambi by the time it actually comes out. So D tier for me. And this was a surprise. I don't know whether this came out last year or what, but this was my first time hearing about it. This is the Global Ordnance Monolith. You might be able to tell in this picture, but Ambi controls, forward charging handle, and the magazine release is a little bit to the rear, but it's not too crazy. It's actually in a good spot. And then a rearward bias bolt catch bullet release, which I do like. Looking at the other side of the gun, this is where it gets interesting. So we have what is actually, and I'll show in some other pictures, it'll be easier to tell, a mirror image bolt catch bolt release. But look at what they did on the right side. Kind of shrunk the top ping pong paddle, and how it works from what the video I was showing or seeing was the dust cover falls on top of this. You essentially push in the dust cover and that activates it, which is kind of interesting. You can even see in this picture where the finish is worn off the dust cover from them doing that. Now, I think that's an interesting design, and we'll get more into it, but it is a mirror image side to side. Even the magazine release, you can tell off the location of the pins that it's the same side to side. What I would like to see them do to even go further with this design is do what I believe Stag Arms does with their left-handed uppers, and have the dust cover fold up instead of down, and then make this upper part of the ping pong paddle larger so that it like still clears the dust cover, but that you have more to press in with when you're using this. And then on the other side, you could just make it match the same size side to side to have the mirror image, because they're pretty much like almost there. Hopefully this is a good gun. This thing really piqued my interest. If I see one for cheap, I might give it a whirl just to see if my idea, or not my idea, but the idea I had with the previous Ambi controls video I made would come true. The bolt catch bolt release in the same position side to side. But you can even see in these two pictures, it's like almost, if not entirely, a mirror image. So very interesting, very cool. This is a very good one. This is a tier for me. I was didn't see that one, and it was up on their website ready to be bought, so it had to have been out longer than the 2 weeks it was at SHOT Show. So I can't believe I missed that one. So there you go. That is the tier list for everything ambidextrous from SHOT Show 2025. Overall, what were my thoughts? I think it was very much like last year's, where we're very much in the iteration side of the gun world. Nothing too crazy that I want to bust down the door and get my hands on first. Definitely some cool tweaks here and there, but it wasn't a total stinker either. So I think it was, it was worth paying attention to this year. Again, big thanks to all the actual real content creators getting the videos of all this for me to steal pictures from. It made it easy having to work those 2 weeks with them making videos on the floor. Going into the end of the video, what I want to talk about is a couple things I was interested in. I think it should go as no surprise. I'll definitely be getting a Staccato full HD at some point. The question is to get the Island front sight variant when that comes out in spring, or to wait for one a little bit more like the Staccato P, but we'll see. That's definitely the top of my list. The SVC 223 is another one. I've been thinking about doing an HK 416 style build, let's say, and that seems to really tick a lot of boxes for me, so who knows, maybe I'll be getting one of those as well. And then the Sentis, I just really hope that's not vaporware. I think that thing is so cool, but I just can't help but think that they're going to be on Forgotten Weapons, or we're not going to hear from them in 2026 at all. So there you go. If there's any thing I missed from SHOT Show that you want up on the list, leave it down in the comments. If you disagree with anything, you can post your own personal list down in the comments, but this is what I came up with. Again, this is strictly off of Ambi controls. I haven't shot any of these. I can't comment on how any of them go. I'm purely using conjecture and previous experience on this, but that is my list for SHOT Show 2025. So I hope you enjoyed.